Master Sergeant John DeSaume on the tenor sax. John DeSaume. Staff Sergeant Reagan Bruff on the composition.
Okay. Hello. Welcome to Grown Up Storytime 144. I'm Emily.
I'm Blair with a background.
Dramatic reveal. We decided that we represent kind of like the dueling themes of Grown Up Storytime this month, where I'm like in my sweats at home, very comfortable.
I got dressed up for y'all and figured out how to make my virtual background work. Because in a normal circumstance, we would make this like a whole Tonys, Oscars, whatever style award show. And this is what we're doing. We're doing it like this. So, yay! Yeah.
So this is Grown Up Storytime 144, but also it's the best of this past season, season 13. It's an extra long season. It was July 2019 through December 2020. So we can't say that these are the best stories from that year, but this is a selection of the best stories that represents the season that we had. So we're really glad that you're here and thank you for coming.
And actually, I will give a shout out. We talked about how we got all this together, how we chose our stories. You can check that out on our Instagram. Those are saved in our IGTV. So if you're curious, like how hard this was to put together, we talk about it. It's on there. Also, that's another reason why this show is a little bit, we raise the ticket price usually on best ofs, just because you are guaranteed a fantastic show. Not that they're not all fantastic, but this is a little bit longer. We invite some people back. And so if you are here, that means you have given us $7. And if you are joining us later, we would still take your money just so that we can support our artists and writers and readers going forward. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and our Venmo handle, if you are tuning in later and want to send us some money, is at GUST Houston, at GUST Houston. And our email address is at grownupstorytime, or no, not at, is grownupstorytimehouston@gmail.com. And that's where you can just kind of send general inquiries, but also that's where you submit stories in the future. It's a rolling, open, always going deadline. But if you're targeting a certain story time, a good rule of thumb is 1 week before the show.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And next month, we are going back to our normally scheduled story time, but this year we are continuing our mission of having guest producers every other month. And we are excited to have Outspoken Bean join us. We've had him as a host and a reader before, but he will be bringing his artistic perspective to the process. And so next month, look for a fun Bean Gust collab.
Yeah. And it's always the third Tuesday of the month. So put it in Sharpie on your calendars.
I did that.
I think that's it.
I just took my agenda and just went through the whole thing every third Tuesday. It's fun. You can do it in different colors. Okay, we should get the show started because there's going to be a lot happening. So we have our hosts in residence, Connor and Ned, back again. So we'll see what they have for us. But anything else? We're good? All right, let's start the show.
Yay.
Hey.
Oh, you're too kind. You're too kind.
Stop, please.
No more.
No.
No more.
Hi, everybody. I'm Connor Clifton, joined by... Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no. I'm Ned Gale.
We're already off to a classic FM Rager start. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the best of grown-up story time. Woo!
Yeah, I'll play the applause again. Wait, one more time. Say the thing again.
Welcome to Virtual Grown-up Story Time 144, a.k.a. the best of GUST. Woo! This has been a long time coming. It's been a heck of a year. We've been so lucky to have a show to host.
Yeah.
You have no idea how much. Like, we love hosting our show. That's on Monday nights at 8 p.m. on twitch.tv/EFFINRAGER. But hosting this show, hosting someone else's show, having someone else's standards to live up to, it's really helped me get through the year.
It's very nice, yeah.
And, it's 2021. 2020 was one heck of a
Do we
year.
even have to say it?
I don't even want to go back to 2020.
No, thank you.
Look, Ned, let me ask you. It's New Year's.
Sure.
Do you have any New Year's resolutions?
Well, Connor, I'm not doing resolutions this year. No, you see, 2020, I came in looking positive, ready for an exciting year, ready to take the year in a positive direction. But we were thrown shit. I'll say it.
Yeah, we were throwing
Poopy doo-doo.
big doo-doo.
So this year, instead of doing resolutions, we've decided that we're going to be doing new beefs. Where's that graphic? Give me that graphic.
That's right. We don't want to hear about how you want to better yourself. We want to hear about your beefs. We want to hear about new feuds that you got stewing this year, or old feuds that you're trying to, wrap up from last year. Sound off in the chat.
Yeah. If you got something that you're taking on this year, if you're gonna beat something up metaphorically, no violence.
Yeah.
But tell us what your new beef is.
Yeah, just chat it up. Pay attention to the stories, obviously. But in between the stories, why don't you just go ahead and tell us, what are you looking to tackle this year?
Yeah.
And again, no self-improvement. Just destruction of others.
Yeah.
Your new beef can't be with your shame or your hang-up. You can't be like, I got beef with some trauma I carry around. This has to be external stuff.
Yeah, I want to see you punch a wall.
I didn't like somebody giving me a judgmental look when I got some Juul pods or whatever you kids are smoking these days. Something like that.
Yeah, I trash a Staples because I'm an Office Depot guy.
I want spite. I want pettiness.
Yeah.
I want vengeance.
Yeah.
We already got one. I have a made-up beef with the silent and very solemn artist in the studio next to mine. That's right. Greg is saying he's got beef with somebody he doesn't know who's very quiet. And that's cool to me, man.
I would disagree that they're silent. They were being very loud the other day. Or if you're talking about the other side of us, then hell yeah, that's my new beef too. I'm going to meet him, and then I'm going to smack him.
Again, metaphorically.
Metaphorically, yeah, with my personality.
All right, should we just get into this?
Yeah, let's please goodness before we get
All right, so Ned, why don't you go ahead and introduce this story? Which GUST is it from?
So coming from GUST 130, we've got Snake Puncher. Is written by John Wayne Communale and read by Greg Cote.
Hey.
Cody, come on.
Hello, I'm Greg Cote. These are my wife's many accomplishments, and this is Snake Puncher by John Wayne Communale. I had to punch a snake to death, and I'm not too happy about it. I truly wish measures could have been taken to prevent the incident, but it's possible that in the heat of the moment, mistakes were made. I personally hope to avoid such incidents in the future, but sadly, I can make no promises. A few days back, I was sitting on the couch in my small library room, in the same spot I always sit when I'm writing. The bookshelf next to me is the perfect height to place a beverage upon, which I often do while keeping my pipe right next to it. Oh, that's my weed pipe. I don't want you mistakenly conjuring up images of a respectable-looking older man writing his memoirs on whaling while smoking fine tobacco from a pipe carved out of a rhino horn. I am blazing away and writing mostly about Satan. On this day, I'd settled into my usual spot shortly after getting out of the shower. I was too warm to put a shirt on, so I decided just to wear jeans until I had to leave the house again. My hair had been getting longer, and when wet, it hung down lower on the back of my neck, so when I felt a subtle tickle, I didn't think anything of it. I quickly reached back to scratch and moved my hair at the same time. A few seconds later, I felt the tickle again, but when I reached back, my hair felt decidedly different. It was colder and thicker, and for some reason, way scalier. Sensing danger, I pulled my hand away, inadvertently flinging whatever I'd touched to the floor. The thing hit the hardwood with a slap and thunk sound that made it easy for my eyes to find. It was a snake. It was a motherfucking snake. Why? Where? How? I don't know these things, but what I do know is that I had a snake on me, and now it was on the floor. Instinct took over, and I found myself standing on the couch emitting a high-frequency sound that some would equate to the scream of a young child. The snake reared back and hissed before darting beneath the couch while I continued to scream. I stood there for a moment wondering if what I had just experienced was real, or if I had finally become unhinged to the point that I had slipped into a hallucinatory reality. I carefully stepped down and backed out of the room, keeping my eyes trained on the bottom of the couch, hoping a pit viper wouldn't shoot out at me, but also completely unaware of what to do if one did. I closed the door, knowing full well that the snake could crawl underneath it, but I still felt better. I had no idea how to handle something like this, but I did know I didn't just want to go back in, stomping my feet, and hope for the best. So I went to the kitchen and got a plastic container with a lid. I grabbed the flashlight from the pantry and put on a pair of heavily padded work gloves I found in the hall closet. I put the dogs in the backyard, and then I went in. A quick scan of the floor turned up nothing, so I figured the snake was still hiding under the couch, or at least I hoped that it was. I set the container on the floor, knelt down with the flashlight, and shined it in the crack between the bottom of the couch and the floor. The light glinted against the snake's eyes, and as they met mine, startled us both. I dropped the flashlight and flopped backward in a clumsy barrel roll like some SEAL Team 6 reject, while the snake retreated further back underneath the couch. I composed myself yet again, and picked up the flashlight from where it had rolled against one of the bookshelves. I aimed the light under the couch and saw the snake had backed all the way up against the baseboard. The thing slithered from the beam of light like an escaped prisoner dashing between the guard tower spotlights. The snake had once again eluded me, but I saw the end of its tail slip behind the bookshelf on the opposite side of the room. I stood up to formulate a different approach and realized I was sweating. Badly. The kind of sweating that would require a second shower if and when this was resolved. I decided to pull the couch away from the wall and then slowly move the shelf out as well. The loose plan was to catch the snake in the plastic container after scaring it from behind the shelf and then take it outside to be free, but in my neighbor's yard. I stood on the couch again and positioned myself so I could move the shelf while having a bird's eye view of the floor beneath it. I didn't have to move it far before my adversary, revealed himself. The thing sat coiled in the corner, staring up at me, staring down at it. And that's when I saw the white diamond on its head. Now, I don't know much about snakes, or really anything at all, but I do know there are supposed to be certain markings to let you know that they're poisonous. I also don't know what those markings are, but in that moment, the white diamond equaled death. I squared up trying to figure out the proper angle to approach when I received a text. "Hey man, I'm around the corner and I'm going to swing by to pick up that stuff. Can't hang though, got the kids in the car." I had forgot that I had picked up some weed for a friend and that he was supposed to pick it up that afternoon. I snatched a book from the shelf with the intent of using it to herd the snake into the container once I got it away from the wall. It was one of those adult coloring books on fractals or something like that, and was longer than it was wide. My intention was to use it to sweep the bastard into my trap, and then the doorbell rang. I couldn't leave the snake alone again now that I had it cornered, and I wasn't in the correct position to catch it yet. The doorbell rang again, and without thinking, I threw the book down at the snake, and it slithered wildly, but from some stroke of luck, its back half was stuck beneath the book, keeping the snake in place. I didn't know how long it would hold, but it at least bought me some time. I left the room, shutting the door behind me again, grabbed the weed from my bedroom, and headed to the front. I was really sweating now, from the heat as well as the intensity of the situation. Dripping and panting, I flung the door open to find my friend waiting. His car was running in the driveway, full of kids, as he'd promised. "Hey man, sorry dude, in the middle of something," I said, cutting him off. Still wearing the gloves, I snatched the cash he was holding and crammed the baggie back into the same hand. I slammed the door and headed to take care of my snake problem once and for all. I entered the room slowly, staying alert for any possible sneak attacks. The coast was clear, so I stepped carefully back onto the couch to find that my trap had held. The snake wriggled, but it was unable to pull its back half from under the book. I wanted to keep it pinned while using the book to slide the creature into my container, but when I went to move, I noticed the injury. Apparently the book hit the snake in such a way that it had cut a deep gash into its body. It was still moving around and trying to get free, but unfortunately the damage was done. I'm not an expert, but I could tell that this was a wound from which the snake would not recover. Still, I held out some hope, but when I saw the white diamond again, I let go of the hope. I kept one gloved hand on the book and maneuvered it closer to the snake's head so it couldn't strike, and then I very carefully reached my other gloved hand down and pinched the vile creature around its neck. I let the book go, and I lifted the snake by its neck and looked it in the eyes. The snake turned out to be a worthy opponent in a battle I never intended to be to the death. I had a better view of the wound now, though, and it was clear the thing wouldn't survive long in its current condition, and I needed to put it out of its misery. I took the snake out my front door, walked it over to my neighbor's flower bed, and dropped it on the soft soil. The thing writhed and flopped, trying to get bearings it would never find. "I'm so sorry, Snake," I said, kneeling in front of it. "I never wanted it to come to this." And then I reared back and punched the snake's head into the dirt over and over, uttering apologies between each blow, and when it was all over, I went inside, truly regretful of how the situation turned out. I let my dogs back in, and they sat on the floor, where they consoled me as I wept. A few minutes later, I got on my computer and searched "Texas snake with white diamond on head." It didn't take long to find what I was looking for. Beneath a picture of the snake identical to the one in my house, the diamond and all, it said "Western ribbon snake. Non-venomous." I had no reason to have feared the scaled beast after all, and like most confrontations, it didn't have to end in death. Still, it was a fucking snake in my house, and it touched my fucking neck, remember? Death was the only way this could have ended.
Keep it going for Greg Cote and John Wayne Communale. What a story that was. We already
Terrifying.
Yeah. Ned, have you ever had to deal with a snake before?
I had a pet snake for a little bit growing up, as you can tell, growing up as a metalhead.
I forgot. You have told me that you had a snake before.
Yeah, it was a large 5-foot red-tailed boa. Its name was Andros.
Really? You named it Andros?
And it bit me right here.
Wow.
Yeah, and it hurt.
Did you get
so bad?
Did you keep him after he bit you?
For about a month, and then I gave it back to the person who I got it from.
What was that person like? Someone who lends out snakes for potential foster parents.
I'm trying to remember why they were getting rid of it, but they hit me up like out of the blue, and they're like, "Hey, you wouldn't happen to still have that snake?" I was like, "Yes. Do you want it? Please take it." They have a bunch of frogs now. They're really cute. I love it.
That's cool. That's what happens when snakes die. They just turn into a bunch of frogs.
They split into several. Yeah.
The reptiles are all related. We know this.
That's the part that John Wayne left out of that story. It's like when you hit a spider and the baby spiders come out, you hit a snake and then it just frogs. What else we got going on here?
Would we say John Wayne Communale has old beef? Yes. New beef. But we're interested in new beef. And for those just joining us, we're asking you, let us know, what new beefs you have this year in 2021.
Yeah, no resolutions, only grudges.
Yeah, just grudges.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, just sound up. We had some beef. Greg was the reader of the story. He was saying that he was making fun of his own goatee, and then Lindsay said they got new beef with Greg's goatee. Oh my God!
I got beef if he shaves it. I'll say it. That's my new beef.
I got beef with anyone who makes that hack. Oh, what are you, a child molester? Anytime I have a mustache.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's old. In fact, I got new beef with Hack. If you're Hack, we got beef.
Hell yeah.
What's not Hack is we have a very special guest.
Oh, that's right.
To help us welcome in the new year. Ned, would you like to introduce this guest?
Ladies and gentlemen, the New Year baby.
Oh my God! What are you doing?
Go, baby!
baby. Go, baby. That's your favorite dance in the world,
It
isn't
really
it?
is. Introduce the next story.
All right, everybody. This story is from Grown Up Storytime 131. It is called First Camp, written by Luis Herrera. Fuck, I fucked that up. I'm just not, yeah. Luis Herrera and read by Chuck Vaughn.
Hey, this is Chuck Vaughn. Happy to be back with Grown Up Storytime. Don't mind my surroundings. I'm on my lunch break. I have my phone nestled in between two nicely sized tree branches. And I've got my story right here. So, without further ado, My First Camp by Luis Herrera. I was born and raised in El Salvador. I am the middle child, joined by my older sister Roxana and my younger brother Jaime. El Salvador is a small Central American country known for its delicious pupusas, beautiful beaches, and, according to the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, the toughest gang members around. For the non-familiars, it's one of those small countries below Mexico that's not really Mexico, but people always confuse with Mexico. I don't mind if you call it Mexico. Mexicans do. But that's another bag of tamales. My parents were a young couple caught in the struggling middle class trying to raise 3 kids in the middle of a civil war that ultimately took the lives of 70,000 Salvadorans. So it was tough. Anyone that has been to a third world country knows that public education in these places is poorly funded by the government, and they do such a shitty job that public schools are the only option for the underprivileged, which sadly is the situation for most of the kids over there. Private schools in El Salvador are not a luxury. It's another bill you need to pay if you have children. It's a way of telling society you don't want your kids getting stabbed or joining a gang. My parents were no exception. They didn't want their kids stabbed, at least by others. They were able to send us to a modest but affordable private school where they were taught the Salvadoran education content under the Salvadorian school calendar from January to December. Both of my parents have always been concerned for our well-being, but in their own way. My mom is a long-term planner, and is looking after the big picture, making sure they pick the right neighborhood to live in, making sure they pick the right bank to put their money in, making sure they pick the right car for the whole family, healthy cooking, etc., etc. My dad, on the other hand, was all about practical lessons. Immediate experience. Learn as you go. It's a bit hard to explain, but he would be able to find the most profound lesson out of any circumstance. He would pick us up after school, and if I would get in the car all beaten up because I got in a fight, I'd get grounded. If my brother would show up all beaten up after a fight, he'd get grounded too. But when we both showed up dirty and bruised after a fight, he'd take us for pizza. He used to tell us that we should always have each other's back. Going back to their school selection, Mom, who never learned English but does a great impression of someone that does, always wanted us to attend a bilingual school where we would be taught English at an early stage. Their biggest challenge was that they couldn't afford an upgrade to one of those expensive, top-notch bilingual schools where only rich parents or diplomats would send their kids to. It wasn't until the time I was in the 4th grade that an affordable option for middle-class kids became available, so my parents jumped on it. That year brought many new things in my life. The most challenging one was being expected to learn and actually get grades on subjects being fully taught in a language that, by then, sounded to me like plain other noise. On the other hand, the best thing out of this change was discovering that the legend that there was a place where kids didn't have to go to school nonstop throughout the whole year was real. That legend we only heard about in cheap teen movies and poor translations of Saved by the Bell, or Salvado por la Campana, as we would know it. That legend became our reality when we discovered summer vacation. Before this new concept, my parents didn't have to do much to keep us busy or entertained during vacation because it happened to match Christmas time, and we all know that God doesn't expect anyone to be busy through December, especially grown-ups. This idea of having the kids at home in the middle of the year presented my parents with a new challenge, and boy, did Mom love new challenges. Dad felt he was better off dead. The way it worked in my house when it came to constructive free time is that Mom would take care of my sister, getting her involved in things like dance lessons, cooking lessons, crochet, and any other cheesy idea that would fit my mom's concept of what a well-raised señorita should know. Dad was stuck with the two boys. Summer came along and he decided that the best thing for my brother and I was to be sent to Grandpa's coffee farm. Coffee had been the family business for a couple of generations, and it seemed like a good idea for us to spend some time learning about harvesting coffee and spend some time with our grandparents while at it. We spent the following 3 summers doing just that. One thing I forgot to mention about the new school is that as much as it was an upgrade for middle-class families, it was also a downgrade for rich kids expelled from the fancy bilingual school due to a variety of reasons. From learning challenges, behavioral issues, bullying, all the way up to dealing drugs or trying to choke a classmate or a teacher or a sibling or a parent or a janitor or a dog. You get the point. Apparently, if you had the money, you could just let our school deal with your broken kid for at least half a day, and after a while they would throw in a high school diploma and send it back to the wild. Every summer, we would come back to school to meet a freak show of new classmates coming from a background of juvenile felonies that got them expelled from their high-end American-influenced schools, and that most likely had given them a legend reputation among their former classmates. Later in high school, these guys would become a great influence in my attitude towards life. It was because of them that I was able to catch up with the 90s by wearing baggy pants, smoking weed, and listening to a whole lot of Sublime and the Wu-Tang Clan. But this was way down the road. They would speak flawless English, dress nicer, rock the latest trends of sneakers or backpacks, fly somewhere every holiday, and even get dropped off to school by a driver. To me, their most notorious trait was camp. Every summer, they would get sent to summer camp in the U.S. and come back with the greatest stories about camping in the woods, swimming in beautiful lakes, singing around bonfires while eating s'mores, and allegedly having seen a ghost, poked a dead body with a stick, or seeing the Sasquatch. One kid even says he saw a ghost of a dead Sasquatch. That was awesome. Anyways, I don't remember ever feeling jealous. It was something they did. Neither resentment nor hard feelings were ever verbalized to our parents. Mom didn't buy it. She was convinced that listening to those stories made us feel lesser than and made her feel uncomfortable. As you may recall, every time Mom feels uncomfortable, Dad is on the hook. This time was no different. That summer, Dad had to come up with a way we would come back with some badass, chickenless anecdotes to tell our classmates about, and would need to match or exceed the summer camp ones. The task was quite a pickle, considering that back then, there was no such thing as summer camps in El Salvador. The closest thing to it was guerrilla training camps, which, by the way, were not an option for obvious reasons, but I can't help to think that it would have made a great essay. Dad was a man on a mission and wasn't going to let Mom down. He sat us down one night on the week before summer and told us that instead of going to the coffee farm with Grandpa, he was dropping us off at a 2-week summer program. He told us about this new place he found where they would teach boys our age special skills. Pretty much the same thing my sister had been going to, but for boys. We were ecstatic. I remember it was the first time that my little brother and I high-fived. The night before, after having packed our clothes and what we considered camp gear, my little brother and I were having trouble sleeping out of the excitement. Jaime, who was a chubbier version of me but 1 year younger, told me how his only fear was that he was going to get bullied by the other kids for being fat and having rosy cheeks. He made me swear that I would tell him if they gave him a nickname, and we both agreed on having each other's backs. Early the next day, Dad drove us to this other school facility that had been adapted to host a summer program. Jaime almost jumped out of the window running towards the entrance, and after kissing Dad goodbye, I followed. After catching up with him, I realized we were a little late, and kids had already gathered around the camp guys for welcoming. I have to admit that on my way there, I had questioned the legitimacy of this camp. But any doubt faded when I realized the camp guys were wearing matching uniforms. This was the real deal, guys. While safety instructions were being given, I was looking around to identify any kid from my school in the crowd with no luck. I did see a familiar face though, Julito. Julito was a kid from our neighborhood who we didn't know very well because his parents wouldn't let him go out and play ever. They were old, very old. All we knew about Julito is that he ran funny and that he had been sent to camp. As everyone was listening to the guides, I kept looking around the room and I accidentally made contact with another kid who spontaneously winked at me. I made no gesture or nodded back as I was pretty sure I didn't know him, but immediately noticed he winked again, but this time not at me. Turns out what I thought was a wink was actually a twitch. I started paying special attention to my immediate surroundings and noticed the kid standing right next to me was wearing a helmet. No skateboard in sight whatsoever. It all started to add up when I heard the loud, sudden laughter and clapping of a kid sitting on the floor who I hadn't noticed being there and who I could tell had Down syndrome. It was then when it hit me. In my head, the voice of the guide faded into white noise as my jaw detached from my face and dropped. Many thoughts went through my head after that, but I'm not proud to say that the very first thing that came to my head was, so this is how they tell you. My immediate reaction was to look for Jaime, and I turned to my left. I found him with one kid on each side wrapping his arms around his shoulders so he could lift his feet off the ground and swing. Poor thing, he couldn't be more clueless. When I saw him, part of me was relieved by thinking, well, that explains a lot. But another part of me was disappointed because I felt I could have called that one. If you knew my brother, you would know that he is one of those people that can do some of the brightest things, but can also disappoint you by doing some of the dumbest. Just to illustrate, he got accepted in med school the same year he discovered he could walk backwards. Not to be confused with moonwalking, that would have been awesome. I'm talking about plain old walking backwards. So you see how I've always been kind of on the fence with him. After acknowledging the nature of this program, in a matter of seconds, I did my best to list the reasons why this couldn't be right. And just to be clear, this is 9-year-old me thinking. 1, our shoes have actual shoelaces and not Velcro. 2, I always make it to the restroom, even if we're throwing up. And 3, the fact that it was 2 of us. I knew the odds of getting one mentally challenged kid were there, but 2? In a row? Really, Dad? You had one job! By the time I realized it was all a misunderstanding, the camp guide was still talking and Jaime had already caught up. He was looking at me in disbelief with eyes wide open like saying, "What the fuck?" I remember vividly his face going from astonishment to crying. I reached out to console him, but now it was both of us crying arm by arm. By the time Dad got to work, management had already called for him to go back and pick us up. As we were sitting on the entrance steps, sipping water from paper cones while still sobbing, Dad rushed through the door, holding a newspaper where he had spotted the ad for the summer program. The lady in charge proceeded to explain to him that what he thought said special skills for boys was actually skills for special boys. This was a subtle but very important difference. I know Dad has a hard time accepting when he's wrong, but when he's proven wrong, he does what every married man does when facing a hopeless argument. He blames his wife. That night, Dad took us all out for pizza and told us how proud of us he was. He didn't apologize, though. He said that life was unpredictable and could sometimes send us into places we felt we didn't belong, places where we would be outsiders, and that, sadly, he was not going to be there to pick us up forever, so we should always have each other's backs. We were off to the coffee farm the next day, and for many summers to come. Not so long ago, Dad had a massive brain stroke that got him in a coma for weeks. My brother, who by then was already a doctor, was allowed inside the cold ICU. He sat next to his bed restlessly, day and night, and I did the same in the adjacent waiting room. When Dad finally regained consciousness, we found out he had lost speech permanently, and the right side of his body was perpetually paralyzed, among other neurological damages. After months of recovery at home, I was finally able to take him to speech and physical therapy for the first time. That day, I carefully drove him to a neurological therapy facility and pushed his wheelchair across the building into the waiting area. As we sat there, Dad was silently looking around at the faces of all the patients in there, all of them showing different traits and levels of neurological damage. He then pointed at the little pad we had been carrying around for him to write on in order to communicate. I handed him a marker and held the pad for him, and he struggled to doodle with his left hand these 4 words: pizza tonight on you. Thank you, everybody. That was My First Camp by Luis Herrera. I'm Chuck Vaughn. This is the Columbia Tap Bike and Hike Trail. I work at Edo Bike Co. If you ever need a new bicycle or need it repaired or want accessories, on to the next reader. Thank you very much.
Yeah, keep it going for Luis Herrera and Chuck Vaughn. That was awesome. Ned, we're at the friggin' Gusties.
I know! Guys, everybody's here. All the celebrities. Ooh, there they are.
There's
Look, and over
Andrew
there.
Love.
Oh,
My God, Brendan Bork-Shield. Is that Blair and Emily themselves? I can't tell.
that's one for the scrapbook.
Yes, here at the red carpet, we're standing outside, patiently awaiting for the queue to allow us into the Gusties. We've been told we're on the waiting list, but we do have some sneak peeks, and we let's just say we know who's winning.
Oh, we know who's winning these awards.
Not only do we know who's winning, we know who's winning what. And
Well, give me the deets, man.
well, okay, hang on, just let me pull it up.
My Vanity Fair hasn't showed up yet.
Look, we want to introduce the very first award that we're giving out tonight for the Gusties. This is the quadruple threat for writing, reading, hosting, and producing in separate grown-up story times, all during the extended season of past year. The award goes to Shayna Schlossberg. Woo! And here to accept her award is Shayna herself.
What?
I would like to accept my first ever Gusty award. People are so preoccupied about the EGOT, but I am one step closer to the GEGOT. And I'm feeling really great about that. And thank you so much, GUST, for, inspiring me to connect to the little writer in me, and for just being such a beautiful, loving space in Houston, for soldiering on during this stupid time, and to my fans. Love y'all.
What a graceful
Beautiful.
acceptance speech.
Beautiful
My
speech.
goodness. All right, let's keep it moving along. Ned,
Yeah.
go
We
ahead.
got from Gust 132, High Functioning, written by Brendan Bork-Shields and read by Brandon Stackhouse.
Enjoy.
High functioning. I knew this kid growing up who never talked much, but when he did, it was like talking to a really bad field reporter for the local news. I'd be like, "Hey Reggie, are you ready for this test?" And after a long delay, he'd be like, "Hey there, Brendan. Yes, I am indeed ready for this test." And I'd say, "Did you study?" "No, Brendan. I did not study for this one. I'm just much, much smarter than most people. That's all for now. Thanks." And then he'd just turn his whole body away from me. That's how he ended every conversation, a blunt sign-off like, "Okay, no more questions, thanks." followed by just turning his back on you as if that meant you couldn't see him anymore. Teachers were always pissed at Reggie because they thought he was messing with them, but no, that's just how he talked. Most kids were awful to him, and if any kid was nice to him, he'd latch onto them, follow them everywhere, and ask them for stuff constantly until he drove them away. He did this with me pretty much every time we had class together. But recently, I ran into Reggie for the first time in years, and as a late 20s adult, he's actually pretty cool. He talks like the average person now. He's part of the Coast Guard. He lives in Hawaii. He told me his life really opened up when he realized that he was on the autistic spectrum. And when he said that, I thought, oh my God, of course, that makes so much sense. I'm such a dick for not realizing that. See, it turns out that our school's special ed department tried to get him tested years ago, but his parents were Christian Scientists, so they were like, well, Jesus never said anything about autism, and psychology turns you gay, so if you test him, we are going to sue you into the ground. Have a blessed day. But as an adult, Reggie finally got evaluated by a professional and started reading up on the spectrum. He realized that he wanted a work environment with lots of structure and routine, and that's what made him join the Coast Guard. And I said, wow, Reggie, it's so great that you figured that out. And he said, yeah, well, I actually wanted to thank you. Because the whole reason that I even suspected that I might have autism in the first place is because I always thought the two of us were pretty similar. And I said, beg your pardon? And he said, because, because you're on the spectrum, right? And I said, I am? And Reggie was like, well, I thought you said you were. You used to talk about autism all the time. We all thought you had it. And I said, wait, who's we? And he said, I don't know, everyone. Why would you talk about a condition that much if you didn't have it? And I said, I don't know, because it's interesting. And Reggie said, okay, well, just so you know, getting super interested in one topic and never shutting up about it is a very spectrum-y thing to do. So I asked him directly, Reggie, do you think I have autism? And he said, I'm not an expert. Which means, yes, I absolutely do think that you have that. So I started making a Venn diagram in my head about things that describe me and things that describe people with autism spectrum disorder. And it didn't take long for me to realize that that Venn diagram was basically a circle. I mean, I've never been great at picking up on social cues. I have trouble with body language, eye contact, flexible thinking. My biggest source of daily anxiety comes from people trying to hug me. I'm easily overwhelmed by sensory stimuli, rigidly adherent to a set of personal routines and rituals. So, I mean, yeah, I fit the profile in a lot of ways. And maybe I'd even casually harbored the suspicion about myself, but Reggie had just taken it to another level. One of the tests that he took when he got diagnosed was online. He sent it to me. It was full of agreed, disagreed questions like, I care about how my actions affect others. Agree or disagree? And I thought, agree, duh. Wait, do I really care? Or have I been conditioned to care? Is that a social script that I wrote for myself? You know who likes writing social scripts? People with autism. They write scripts constantly. You know what else is interesting? My actual job is script writer. That's what I do all day. Fuck, how did I miss this? Then the test results came back. Now, this is a test with a 50-point scale where anyone who scores 33 or higher is considered to be a candidate for autism spectrum disorder. I scored 33. So it seemed like if I wasn't on the spectrum, then I was just barely off of it. Now, I really wanted to see a psychiatrist, but I make 17 grand a year and my car needs a new timing belt, so there's like no money in the budget for mental health until at least 2025. I felt myself spinning out, but then I remembered, wait, I already know an expert in this subject. My mom. She's a licensed specialist in school psychology. She works with kids on the spectrum every day. There's no way she could have raised me and never have picked up on this. So to put the whole thing to bed, I called her up and I said, hey Mom, I'm sorry to bother you. I've just been having this really weird paranoia about being on the autism spectrum disorder scale. But that's dumb, right? And on the other end of the phone, my mom went, Interesting. I kept trying to get her to dismiss my worries, but like a good scientist, she kept hedging everything she was saying with disclaimers like, well, I never specifically thought that about you, but I'm hardly objective, and I've only gotten to observe you in a limited set of social situations. And I was like, yeah, but Mom, you think about this stuff all the day. It's what you do. My mom said I used to work with a psychiatrist who was on the spectrum, and he was brilliant, but he had no clue as to his own condition. Expertise does not exclude the possibility of diagnostic oversight here. I kept looking for some kind of reassurance from her, but the best I could get was, well, if you are on the spectrum, then you're very high functioning. And I was like, yes, I am good at hiding my problems from the world, thereby assuring I will never get help. Thank you. I ended the phone call more confused than when I had started, so I decided to go to the one other person I knew who might be able to help. Darren, a teacher at a school where I'm sometimes a guest instructor. It's a school for students with learning differences, and after his first few years of working there and interacting with kids on the spectrum, Darren got evaluated and learned that he was on the spectrum too. So one day I was guest teaching a class there when I saw him in the faculty lounge, and I told him everything. And then I asked him straight up what he thought. And without even looking up from the papers he was grading, he said, "Oh, you're on the spectrum for sure." And I said, "Really?" And he said, 100%, I figured that out within 5 seconds of meeting you. I thought you knew. And then he just got up and he left me there. So for the next couple of days, I processed waves of shock and denial. But then I thought, you know what? For someone with undiagnosed autism, I'm doing pretty well. Most of the things that get taught to people on the spectrum as coping strategies are things I taught myself without realizing that's what I was doing. As a teacher, I made scripts. I made talking obsessively about one subject my entire job. I wrote social scripts. I created healthy routines and discontinued unhealthy ones. I am doing better than I think I am. Then a couple days later, I went back to that school to teach another class. And then Darren found me in the lounge and he said, "Hey, remember when I told you that you definitely have autism?" I said, "Sure." And he said, "Yeah, well, I have no idea if that's true. It was just a thing I wanted to try. Here's what I'm curious about. What did you feel after I told you? Because the point of a diagnosis is to make your life easier. So, did it make your life easier? Because if it did, great. If not, don't worry about it." And then he left again. But not before adding, "By the way, I think socialism is a mental disorder too." So, I'm not sure anybody should be listening to Darren, and I still don't know if I'm on the spectrum or not. The only thing this has made clear for me is that a lot of us are probably walking around with an undiagnosed case of something, either because it's gotten missed, or because we're in denial about it, or because the diagnosis hasn't even been invented yet. And I realize that might sound like a deeply unsettling note to end this story on, but I actually think it's kind of affirming. We are all doing a lot better than we think we are. Thank you.
Hey, keep it going for Brendan and Brandon. Two very, very similar names. Somebody pointed out in the chat, thanks to Bree, Brendan and Brandon, what a duo.
You ever have a Connor situation?
I did.
N-E-R, N-O-R?
It was, we were both ERs.
Nice.
But yeah, in college I was good buds with a Connor. We were actually roommates. And we used to do this, I'll tell this real quick. We did a 5-minute presentation once called the Connors College at U of H, at the Honors College. And we were just goofing, and the dean thought it was so funny, he made us do it 3 more times.
Do the Connors again.
Yeah, we're at the very end, we're like, this is the last time. We're never fucking doing this again. What about you? You ever been with a Ned?
Yeah, I played in a ska band with another Ned. He played drums, I played guitar and sang. That's all you need to know about that.
What was the name of the ska band?
A Fat Lot of Good.
Oh, this was A Fat Lot of Good. Okay, I've heard about that.
All right, let's jump into the next story.
Okay, your next story is from GUST 134. It is The Swing Flip, written by Sonny Garcia and read by Eric Peterson.
Ooh.
The Swing Flip by E.L. Garcia IV. It was the fall of the year 1995, and I was still a nerd. I always have been, but it was becoming ever more apparent ever since I moved into the tiny South Texas brush country town of Benbolt, Texas. Population? A healthy 1,000. I moved away from the crown jewel of South Texas, Alice. No, not Dallas like the Cowboys, Alice like Alice in Wonderland. Yeah, that Alice, the hub city. Home of the Tejano Roots Museum and the Guinness World Record holder for the tallest freestanding cement water tower. Well, I'll wait while you finish your applause. I had survived the 7th grade, which was a miracle in its own right, but not unscathed. I had spent half the year in a cast, first on one wrist, and then on the other, all because boys much larger than me didn't like my face and decided to knock it into the dirt. Twice. I think they thought I was too smart, too chubby, too white, too different. Take your pick. And I can't say I blame them. I was. I liked to read, and I liked pizza, and I liked to write little stories, and I liked music too much. And even though my name sounds like I'm descended from Spanish royalty and ends in the 4th, I didn't know how to cuss in Spanish as well as they did. Fortunately, those boys who beat me up became freshmen in high school and left me to make more friends in the 8th grade at the middle school. One of those new friends was Maria. Say it loud and there's music playing. Say it soft and it's almost like praying. Maria had moved from Houston, and she was the nicest, prettiest, funniest girl I had ever met. We rode the bus together in the mornings, and we went to the same church and CCD events. That's where Catholic children go to learn to become agnostic as adults, but still pray when they're scared. So we hung out together a lot. She was super smart, and she wasn't shy about it either. She was also upbeat and happy, even though I know she had some trouble at home. Maria was a gorgeous ray of brown-haired sunshine in an otherwise gloomy time in my life. I didn't stand a chance. Now, she was an excellent writer, so when the chance came up for her to compete in academic writing competitions with the school, my teacher signed her up first. Meanwhile, I signed up for poetry and prose oral interpretation. When I found out there would be an academic tournament in October, I was excited because I knew that we would be able to hang out and talk and play cards all day long. A dream come true. Finally, the day came along, and I can remember snapping out of bed. I dressed up in my favorite shirt and readied myself for a great day. Maria took a seat right next to me. She smelled like grass and girl shampoo. She smiled as she greeted me, sat next to me, and dropped her head onto my shoulder for a second. Immediately, I felt a flush in my cheeks. We finished our events early in the morning, so we hatched a plan. While the other kids were playing cards and the teachers were busy organizing the events, it would be easy for us to sneak away and hang out behind the school. We slipped out of the cafeteria and sat behind the school near the bus stop, alone, just the two of us, me and Maria. There we sat in the cool afternoon sun, Maria's long brown hair blowing in the wind and her brown eyes twinkling as we laughed and kidded together. What do you want to be when you grow up? I can remember her asking. I'm not sure, but I've always been interested in the way people think. Maybe a psychologist? I shrugged, pulling into myself nervously. Around my guy friends, that would be the kind of answer that would provoke a scowl of confusion and disgust, followed by getting called that name that is now known as the F word, but was then just what people called me when they found out I didn't like football. I remember the way she lit up when she answered, "Me too!" And I remember the wave of relief I felt at not being the only one and not completely blowing this moment. She smiled and said, "When we graduate college and have our doctorates, we should open a practice together." I promised her immediately that we would. There was nothing I wanted to do more than that. The talking and laughing continued, and we came up with the idea to move to the swing set near the bus stop. We sat next to each other, idly swinging and talking about the present and the future. We were both pretty nervous about the looming shadow of it, the unknown quantity that was growing up. Suddenly, a bright idea dawned on her. Well, we may be growing up, but we can still be kids for today. And with that, she pushed off to start swinging as high as she could. Well, how could I do anything but start swinging too? The two of us were swinging carefree, trying to reach the sky in our lives and in our little playground. That was a great moment. It's a particular feeling that I've never been able to recreate. Suddenly, she shouted, "Can you do this?" And then, at the apex of her swing, with all the grace of an Olympic gymnast dismounting from the parallel bars, she threw herself backwards out of her seat and spun head over heels before landing with perfect form. She stood there triumphantly, her hands above her head, all 5 foot and odd of her, like Simone Biles before Simone Biles. The empty swing flew harmlessly behind her head, through its nadir and opposite apex, and then, taking a small step back, it returned, and she sat in it with a self-satisfied smile. Now, I've never been very athletic. I've always been solidly built and a little chubby. I'm pretty fast on my feet, but those feet are very flat, so short bursts of speed are out of the question. But swinging there with Maria, I felt limitless. I felt like I could do anything. I felt superhuman. I felt myself saying, I can try. I felt my weight shift backwards at the apex of my swing. I felt the world slide upside down. I felt the joy of realizing that I could do this, me. I could flip out of my swing and land on my feet. I felt my heart well up with the other possibilities of the world. I felt the non-existent arches of my flat feet catch the chains of the swing and tangle me in a snare. Suddenly, the world was very slow. Frozen in time, I remember seeing everything from my vantage point about 9 feet above the ground. In that split second, I remember seeing Maria's eyes go wide with horror and realization. I remember her hands flying slowly up to cover her terrified mouth. I remember spreading my arms out like a bird and trying to fly away, but my talons were caught in a trap. In that forever second, I was a trapeze artist, my butt on the bar, my legs wrapped in the wires, my arms outstretched for a partner that just wasn't there. But there was definitely no net, just the ground, 9 feet, straight down, and coming closer. I saw the future in that moment. I felt the pain of slamming into the ground unprotected from 9 feet up. I felt the momentum of a wrecking ball on my nose. I felt the urge to throw my arms up, but then I felt 6 more months in a cast. I felt what a crushed face would look like. I felt the pain of being disfigured for the rest of my life. I felt all of those things and I ran from them. In a desperate bid to save myself, I curled my back like a cooked shrimp, trying to finish the flip, trying to find my feet, trying to move my face out of the way of the rushing ground. It's the first thing that saved me. As I flew closer and closer to the ground, I found the second thing that saved me. If you remember from your childhood, every swing has a rut underneath it, from the years or decades that people push off or stop. The ground was eroded away in a tiny ditch. This extra room was just enough so that with my back curled as far as it would go, I was able to just scrape the tip of my nose as I passed the ground. When I found myself at the back of my pendulum motion, I flexed my abdominal muscles and threw myself forward. This, combined with momentum, was enough to put me upright in the swing, and as soon as I came down, I planted my feet firmly on the ground. I remember letting out the tiny breath I had been holding in a whispered sigh of relief, and then looked over at Maria, a little puff of brownish-white playground dust clinging to the tip of my nose. We locked eyes for a second, and I could hear her care and concern. I wanted a hug. As she pulled her hands away from her face slowly, she began to laugh. Laugh isn't the right word. She cackled. She crowed. She guffawed. The fits of her laughter caused her to pitch forward in her seat and drop onto the grass. In a gale of chuckles, she rolled, breathless, into silent giggles, and when she was done, she looked at me, sitting in my swing after my gymnastic trick, dejected, with a smudge of brown dirt on my nose like some sad circus clown, and she laughed again. Awkwardly, I smiled to show I was okay, and that made her laugh even more. I tried to help her up as she rolled around on the ground, but just when she got her feet under her, she looked into my eyes and started to laugh even harder and fell back to the ground. I got fed up, and with a roll of my eyes, I started to head back to the cafeteria. She cried, "Wait! Wait!" And hearing her laughter abate, I turned to see her with arms wide open for a comforting embrace. I smirked and opened my arms to accept it, but when she saw the dirt on my nose, she collapsed into fits all over again. Little by little, I helped her inside, her chortling all the way, and I excused myself to the bathroom. I washed my face and my hands and took a deep breath. "It's okay," I reassured myself. "It's okay. She's laughing with you, not at you. It was pretty funny." I dried my hands and headed back to the cafeteria. Maria was sitting, staring at the opposite wall with her chin in her hand, looking calm and collected. As I got closer, her eyes lighted over to me, and I watched her devolve anew into hysterical laughter, and so it went every time I saw her for a week. Maria moved away before our freshman year. I'm pretty sure I didn't get to tell her goodbye, and I know I never told her how much I wanted to be more than friends. The 13-year-old version of me was sure that it was over as soon as she saw me nearly kill myself trying to impress her. The older version of me knows that everybody likes somebody that can make them laugh. If I would have just taken the chance, who knows what might have happened? Sometimes, when you take big chances, you can do death-defying and physically improbable things just to escape with a little puff of dirt on the tip of your nose. Thank you.
All right, keep it going for Sonny and Eric. That was incredible. Ned, is that another Gusty celeb?
My gosh, I can see it with my binoculars. Oh, that had beer in it.
All right, here, the next award we have is Wildest Story, and this is for, a story that you're just like, what the heck?
How the?
Whenever you hear it. And here to accept their award for Wildest Story for their story, Bayou City Burn, which was a crazy story that took us all over Houston, is Astrid Lange. Astrid, please give your speech.
Man.
Are you okay?
I have something back. Stuck in my throat.
Damn.
Astrid,
Yes.
I want to present you with the 2021 Gusty Award for Wildest Story.
Is that what? Oh my god. It is. This is for the story.
Speech.
Oh my God, oh my God. Oh, wow. Thank you so much. Thank you for that workshop. Thank you to everybody that is involved with Grown Up Storytime and that inspires people to write and to share and to communicate and like.
Here.
Wow, this is beautiful. Look at that. Ah, thank you. Wow. I don't know what else to say. Honestly.
Good speech. That's how you give an acceptance speech.
That's how it's done.
All right, let's move it along. Ned, why don't you introduce the next story?
Guys, from GUST 137, we have The Hot Sauce Story, written by Ryan Grimes and read by Antoine Colbreth.
Mm-hmm.
The Hot Sauce Story. So, back in the early 2010s, I was dating this girl, Rachel, who I was head over heels in love with. We had been dating for about 2 years, and I still had that stupid, teenage, boy-like instinct to impress her with stupid feats of daring, even though I was pushing 30 at the time. It's my birthday, and she, being the most thoughtful person in the world, decided to take me to the Bedrock City Comics close to the Wingstop way down Westheimer. We went to the shop, and I got some bullshit Star Trek something or other, and then we went to go get wings. Now, some people think I love wings, and they're great, sure, but what I really love is hot sauces. Wings are just the only appropriate way to consume copious amounts of hot sauces in public. At home, sure, whatever. Nobody can judge me as I just dab out Dave's Insanity sauce on my tongue while I play FIFA. So I, of course, ordered 20 atomic sauce wings, extra wet, with a side of atomic sauce just to, prove a point. I proceed to down all 20 sloppy wet wings, dipping them in the extra sauce just to add more pain. Now, this girl is hysterically laughing her ass off at me while I sweat off what feels like 10, maybe even 20 pounds of weight. Why did we eat outside in late May in Houston, you ask? Well, I think we've already established that I am an idiot. So there we have it. Anyways, I'm loving it. The wings are literally finger licking good. I mean, I cannot let any of that extra sauce go to waste. And then eventually we head out. So the birthday festivities continue to my favorite bar, which is close to my house, for a few or way too many drinks. Then we head back to my house. Look, it's my birthday. And I'm not saying that I'm entitled to sex, but she had that look in her eyes, and I instantly went from 6 to midnight. It's go time. I'm not, see what I'm saying? I'm not exactly the smoothest operator. And no one that I've ever even been remotely involved with would tell you that I am. But at the time, I had a system. Start smooching. Check. All right. Over the shirt? Yes. Got the go for that and the green light for the under the shirt? Check. Right on. You know, I start kind of playing around with the belt buckle like I never encountered a belt buckle, you know? And you know, I'm just waiting for her hand to shove me away, and the, you know, no means no. I'm literally holding my breath. I've been playing around with this belt buckle for what feels like just way too long. And eventually she just moves my hand and then does it herself and is likely thinking I'm an idiot. But hey, we here now. It's time to get this show started. Slip my hand down, feel around, open the door, so to speak. Start a little light massage. I can't front. I've been a fan of hands-on stimulation since high school. And to be fair, my technique has likely not changed very much at all. But I'm getting all the go signs, you know, from her, and the moans of pleasure are getting more and more intense, which to me is a good sign. But let me tell you, it was not. I now know the difference between a ooh, ooh, yeah, baby, kind of moan right there, you know, like that. And a you fucking idiot, did you wash your fucking hands after you ate kind of moan, you know? And I don't know if you know this or not, but they are very different moans. She very quickly removed my hand from her pants and rushed off to the bathroom. And I'm immediately thinking, wow, I misread that entire situation. And no does mean no, Ryan. Remember what your mom told you back in high school? Which, you know, I know is a weird thing to start thinking about your mom in that kind of a moment, but it did cross my mind. So let me back up a little bit. She yelled, "You fucking idiot. Did you wash your fucking hands after you ate?" And it dawns on me, I mean, I did. Technically, though, in today's world of COVID-19, I now know that you have to wash your hands with soap and water for like 20 seconds and not just lick the sauce off your fingers like a fucking 9-year-old. I know that now. A little backstory about my shitty apartment back then. I mean, it was in a decent neighborhood, but the building had been constructed in like 1940 or whatever, and it wasn't in the best of shape, probably due to all of the racist ghosts that I assume lived there previously. The bathroom had a tub that I kept reasonably clean and a door that would totally shut and latch if you didn't try and slam it in a fit of atomic vagina rage. But if you did try to slam it in a fit of atomic vagina rage, it would just kind of pop back open a little bit. So she did exactly that. And then I hear the tub turn on, which I'm thankful for because I kept the tub reasonably clean. I figured that this may be my only chance at that moment to see how one washes hot sauce off of one's area. So I should at least try and check and make sure that she's okay, right? I thought. And this is how little I knew/know about the female anatomy and how to access it, I guess would be the best word or term. That she would, probably just turn the faucet on and then scoop back and then just kind of reach around to get some water that was pouring out, And I was dead ass wrong, because I poked my head in to offer some support and I see her just, sort of laying there, crab style, with her belly up like she's in one of those horror movies, And that's how she's splashing the water on herself, which makes sense to me, I don't know why I didn't think of that. That's exactly how I would do it. If somebody had put hot sauce on my balls, what did I expect was going to happen? Anyway, I get yelled at for several more minutes before I finally Google a remedy. And then I find myself sitting on the toilet, slowly pouring vinegar mixed with baking soda on her and gently blowing cool air with a fan, one of those little portable ones. And I think to myself in that moment, somewhere on this earth, there's some poor, sick bastard. And this is his exact fantasy. But there's no way for us to even monetize this situation to try and pay off student loans, as OnlyFans wouldn't be invented for another decade. Eventually the burning stopped, and we had a good laugh. And then we split up and started seeing other people. My next girlfriend's birthday, by some cosmic happenstance, was the day after mine, May 27th. And I was really excited about this new place from Austin that was opening up locations in Houston. And she just insisted that we go there on her special day a few years later. Where are we going again? I had asked her as we were getting in the car to go meet her friends for a special celebration. You're gonna love this place, she said. It's called Pluckers. So that's the end of the story. And I just want to say that it's been a great joy of mine to be a part of this organization and to have my last performance of 2020 become my first performance of 2021. Back to you guys.
Yeah, Antoine, you dog. Love you, Antoine. All right. Hey,
I love hot sauce.
Speaking of hot sauce, one thing that we did this year, or that I did, is I got really into hot sauce and spicy things, thanks to your influence.
Hey.
And we both bought designer hot sauce for a box designed by Simon Hanselman, a great illustrator out in Seattle. Sound off in the chat. What are some new obsessions you developed over pandemic?
Ooh.
What
are your new obsessions? Wait.
Obsessions. Tell us your new obsessions. All right, we're going to keep this chugging right along. For your next story, it's from Grown Up Storytime 137. It's Out Front, written by Ronald Llewellyn-Jones and read by Andrew Barrett.
Hey, I'm Andrew Barrett, and this is Out Front by Ronald Llewellyn. It was 2016. I was entering the second year of my multimedia fellowship. I was grateful for the opportunity to create work and document the exhibitions that were being shown. My favorite part of the long list of responsibilities was that I was able to sit with folks that had found themselves the center of attention after long years of working within their respective practices. Needless to say, I looked forward to meeting and interviewing all available artists. It was to be my first time getting to learn more about what was described as one of Houston's biggest names in the art world. I was excited. I was able to document quite a few artists before getting this opportunity, so I was not familiar with their work, but had heard that it was potentially triggering for some. I felt that if the artists were anything like Trenton Doyle Hancock, I would really be in for a treat. Even though I had not been able to interview him during the run of his show, I did get to sit in and watch the interview take place. I looked forward to this opportunity to show that I could present this artist as they had wanted to be seen. Unfortunately, the artist declined the service and instead created their own exhibition trailer. I had not had the opportunity to be introduced during the install, but enjoyed documenting the install process. There were nice, soft chairs included in the exhibition. I would leave the office building and enter the gallery just to sit in them. I'm in the catalog for the exhibition doing just that. When I first took on this position, I was using equipment older than I was using for my own professional practice. I decided that I would use my own equipment at the risk of losing it for my own purposes. I knew that the organization would not add any additional income to my stipend for its usage. My stipend issued bi-monthly and only upon request was $1,000 bi-monthly, an amount that would increase by $500 in the next month. It should be noted that this occurred at a time when I was only required to be present at the organization an average of 16 hours weekly, though I actually worked an average of 30 hours or more, sometimes staying late in the evening to make progress or complete assignments with fast approaching deadlines. Nevertheless, I needed there to be consistency in the quality of work to which my name was associated. I, at the time, did not see being hired on as staff as a remote possibility, as I had seen numerous persons of color depart the organization somewhat prematurely. DSLRs, or digital cameras, usually only allowed video recording for up to or around 30-minute intervals. I could not afford to miss a word, as it could lead to the loss of potentially pertinent information. I discovered a way to mount a second camera atop another, a setup I utilized for this project and many others for some years. Each camera had a battery grip attached to extend the battery life, weighed about 10 pounds. It was not easy maintaining a steady hand, but I was able to manage spurts at a time. I was willing to do this because the consistency and quality was worth the physical exertion. The exhibition was up. It was the morning of the opening, as was customary. The curator would ask the artist to be present the morning of the opening to discuss with the tour coordinators at length the intentions and ideas implicated within the artwork. I was excited to hear this particular artist speak about their work. It was said that they would not speak directly about the work to individuals, so I was glad to be a part of that experience. Unlike most walkthroughs where the tour coordinators, community engagement department, and curators were only allowed to be present, the entire staff was welcome to participate. The artist was late. It was relayed that they were aware of this meeting having been scheduled, but still needed to be reminded. So we waited for their arrival. When the artists arrived, they were noticeably perturbed by the number of individuals present during this exchange. They made it clear that they did not like the way the experience appeared upon arrival. After muted pleasantries and an excuse was delivered, the artist turned to me. "Is he going to be recording me?" The artist voices. "Yes," my department head replied. I don't think I agreed to that," the artist retorted. The department head continued, "It was expressly mentioned with the email about the scheduling. We use these recordings internally only. They are for the tour coordinators that are not currently present. They allow these persons to educate themselves on the work so that they may lead tours and create workshops specific to this experience." We are near the foyer area. I am an island. The artist stood next to the director, the remaining staff extending out from the artist's other side. I was recording, I believe. He turned to me. My hands were sweating. I felt a little dizzy, maybe from the stress and anxiety of being unnecessarily and unfairly singled out, or potentially because I had not eaten this morning. I cannot recall what he said, but it was extremely offensive and made me feel extremely uncomfortable. It was a challenge. I was put on the spot, being antagonized in front of all of my colleagues, antagonized for my role within the organization, currently documenting this presentation. The department heads looked directly at me. "Ronald, stand up for yourself." The sweat seemed to pour out of my hands. What was I supposed to say? This is one of the largest names in Houston. Am I allowed to say, "Go fuck yourself"? Wouldn't I lose my job? I stood there. I was very lonely. It was an awfully familiar space. I began to realize that I had many experiences like this, whether working, hanging out, or being in the company of a majority white, non-black, and sometimes all-black audience or group. I knew this feeling. I have known it since childhood. Those experiences revived, filled my heart with fear of isolation, intimidation, and hurts from years past. It was later said that the director practically begged this artist to have this exhibition, a show filled with works that were loud, obvious, topical references to pop and mainstream cultures, works that oftentimes consisted of shock value, centered depictions of celebrities and culturally relevant issues that the artist either could not sell or were not for sale. I looked out at the many white faces looking back at me from the semicircle, all awaiting a response that I was not able to deliver. Not because I was not greatly offended, but for fear the artist may pull the show or that I may suffer the loss of the only job opportunity I had at the time. I was a black man with no college degree and 2 felonies stemming from a violent crime. I would not find another job like this easily. I did not have the position or agency to stand up for myself in this moment without the inevitability of becoming homeless yet again, as I was homeless prior to taking on this position. There I was, one of the very few black persons standing in front of a sea of white faces. I peered through their faces and could see the faces of the 2 black men. The faces were those of the managers and the gallery's docents, both looking back at me over the front desk, no doubt wondering how I would handle this experience. Had they experienced something similar, I thought? There was silence. No one said anything or came to my defense. I no longer felt safe in this space, though I always lived with the fear that they would learn of my felonies and fire me due to a staff member's fear of me. It was at this point that I realized that I would not have a single white ally within this workplace. I knew this because this would have been the time when they would have stepped in, and they did not. The walkthrough started from this extremely uncomfortable position. During the walkthrough, the artist would make several movements and shifts so that they could avoid the camera. They did this regardless of their understanding that this was part of my job. As I recorded, I would see and immediately try to avoid the faces that expressed smirks or those that felt the need to express stifled chuckles and laughter at my situation. I am sure it may have seemed comical for those who are not currently being subjected to this very public bullying. I began to long for the end of this humiliation. I slowly began to remove myself from the experience. I receded into myself. Giving in, I began to record the walkthrough as the artist intended from a very useless point of view. My arms began to shake, but I remained steady. I imagined throwing the equipment to the ground, storming out of the gallery, but these things belong to me. If I do this, I will surely lose this job. What could I do for a living if I no longer had these instruments? I'd already promised myself to never take another shitty job just for the income. I, at this time, carried a page torn from a book. It was a gift that I received from a homeless man downtown. It read, "No job is beneath you." But in that instance, I felt that I was truly above this position, place, and those people. The walkthrough goes on for some time. I just want it to be over. Over so that I might suck down this emotional trauma and sit out the nervous anxieties in private. I would have to suppress this hurt for the time being. The walkthrough ends. I have not received an apology, not from the curator, who is also the director, nor from the artist. As I lowered the camera and prepared to leave the gallery, one of the tour coordinators who appeared to find the situation comical approached me. As I lowered the camera and prepared to leave the gallery, one of the tour coordinators who appeared to find the situation comical approached me. "It was amusing watching him try to keep you from filming him, and you were trying to make it work." Their words lacked the understanding needed to perceive the inconsistencies and discrepancies of our experiences. I could not find the humor in the position in which I found myself. The comment hurt and lingered in my mind for some time, as it does to this day. As I neared the door to leave, the two black men addressed the situation, as they were witnesses to the hour-long humiliation. The first one spoke out. "That was messed up, man." "Was that even necessary or called for?" added the second. Not wanting to reply, I responded, "Yeah, I don't know, it's all good." I did not and still do not blame these two black men for not saying anything in the moment. I would find later that these two were being mistreated, that they themselves were subjected to several unjustifiable errors on the organization's part. This was something I did not like. I would, over the next 2 years, try several times to speak up on their behalf against the unfair treatment that they were subjected to, unbeknownst to them. However, these talks never led to any action, only excuses. In the office building, as I break down my equipment, my department head attempts to address the situation. "I'm sorry, Ronald," the department head started. It's fine," was my reply. "He knew that we were doing a walkthrough today. I sent the email and mentioned that we would be recording it," the department head added. "It's okay." The only thing I could say, hoping that it would call to an end to the conversation. I am sure they knew it was not okay. I knew I did not have anyone that I could trust. I had no one to rely upon to make sure I was okay. I knew and felt that a new gate had opened, but I would not find out where it would lead for another 2 years. When the show was being deinstalled, the artist approached me and apologized. "Hey, did you see that you're in the catalog?" the artist stated. "Yeah, I saw that. I spent a lot of time in those chairs," I replied. "I'm sorry about the walkthrough. They didn't tell me that I was supposed to be here, and I didn't expect there to be so many people," was their next statement. "It's fine," I replied, meaning none of what I was saying. It was not fine and has never been. I still carry it with me. It is a scar, one that I often rub as a reminder of how invaluable I was seen to be within the organization. It fills me with anger at the loss of agency that I felt and the humiliation that I stood and took that I did not deserve. It reminds me of all the cold stares and wide eyes, the smirks and laughter and half-assed apologies that followed. Apologies I accepted with words, but not with my heart or my soul. It was a very abusive and toxic environment, one that consistently sheltered and supported persons with obvious patterns of abuse, manipulation, and closeted racism. Thank you.
All right. Keep it going for Ronald and Andrew. Thank you very much.
Fantastic story.
Now, we have one more Gusty to hand out tonight.
What's that?
That's right. Tonight, with the last Gusty we have, the winners of Most Innovative Sweet Collaboration are Alex Ebner and Deb Gross. If you don't remember from Gust 143 last month, they were the first and last story, and they were a couple who wrote a story about the day they met, or their first date.
Hey, honey, we just won an award. It's a Gusty.
It is a Gusty.
I've never won anything before. I think I'm gonna cry.
It's
so beautiful.
We would like to thank Grown Up Storytime for giving us this year's award for Most Innovative, a Sweet Collaboration. We're thankful to have won this award that we didn't know existed until 48 hours ago via email. This award could not be possible without Blair and Emily, the inconsistent supply chain of Sabbath candles, anxiety over dating, and Detroit-style pizza. Who would have known you can win an award-winning collaboration by sitting in separate rooms for many hours, writing alone about each other?
Collaborating.
I know, it's amazing.
I don't know what the hell are you wearing.
Don't ruin this for me, honey.
I'm so happy.
Thank you, Grown Up Storytime.
All right.
Yeah, what a speech.
Thank you, Alex and Deb. All right. Now we've got two more stories left. So, Ned, why don't you introduce the next one?
Yeah, it's from Grown Up Storytime 139. It's Party in the USA, written by Shayna Schlossberg and read by Debrina Sandifer.
Party in the USA. The first time I heard Cardi B's Bodak Yellow was in the summer of 2017 while I was partying on a boat in Puerto Rico during my college best friend's bachelorette weekend. Chandra loved boat trips, so we had planned a full day on a catamaran, which we shared with another large group of girls, coincidentally also in Puerto Rico for bachelorette festivities. The other bachelorette party was a stark contrast from ours. Our group consisted of mostly black and brown women. The other group of women was all white. Chandra is from Chicago proper, as are many of her friends, and those of us who aren't from Chicago grew up in big cities. We learned that the girls in the other bachelorette group were from the suburbs of Chicago. Those of us in Chandra's crew, we wore matching black floral patterned robes. The others wore matching oversized shirts with the image of a toned torso and a bikini airbrushed onto them. We requested Cardi. They requested Miley. Chandra could fall asleep pretty much anywhere, a skill I enviously watched her perfect in college. And this fool was peacefully slumbering in the middle of the boat party when Cardi's Bodak Yellow came on. Jackie, a high school friend of Chandra's, had played it for her and smacked her awake. Registering what song it was, Chandra popped up and, despite being half asleep, rapped along word perfect with a swagger that could rival Cardi's. I tried to remember as many of the lyrics as possible so I could look the song up later. But Chandra was always ahead of the curve. And it was almost a full year before Cardi's debut studio album, Invasion of Privacy, was released and she became a household name. As we danced to Cardi's unapologetic brand of braggadocio, I glanced across the boat to the other bachelorette party. They quietly observed us go ham, with a mix of curiosity, fear, and irritation. Our boisterous group of brown girls was having just a little too much fun without them. 6 months before I heard Cardi for the first time, Donald Trump was sworn in as President of the United States. An entirely different brand of braggadocio was captivating a subset of our nation. Trump, like Cardi, is loved for being loud and speaking off the cuff. They're both ostentatious. They strut with that New York swagger, brag about wealth and sexual prowess, and have used questionable, illegal tactics to get to where they are. But, see, the key difference between these two icons represents the greater power struggle that was occurring in the US at the time and which continues to this day. Cardi successfully takes space in conversations that have traditionally been male-dominated and taboo for women, especially Black women, to control. Hip-hop, sex, wealth, even politics. In some ways, Cardi represents change and disruption to long-established power structures, whereas Trump represents a bullish shielding of status quo, keeping power in the hands of white men. This was the backdrop in July 2017 during a quietly fraught boat party in Puerto Rico, 6 months after Trump's inauguration, 1 month before the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, 1 year before Cardi B and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez shattered records. Both women of color and white supremacy were ascending. After Bodak Yellow ended, it was our boatmates' turn to play a song. I hopped off the plane at LAX with a dream in my cardigan. Yeah. Goddamn, Miley Cyrus's Party in the USA. The song affected our group viscerally. Like, we could not fuck with it. First of all, the song was already 10 goddamn years old. Like, listen to something new. Secondly, you played the queen of appropriating Black culture immediately after a group of Black and brown women played a song by a Black female rapper. Thirdly, we may be partying, but America is a dangerous dumpster fire for people that look like us. As the other girls danced in their awkward, like, jumpy sort of way to Miley's bubblegum pop, we all sat down and quietly grumbled to each other. Fucking lame. Whack-ass song. Ugh! From that point on, the boat ride took a frigid and mildly confrontational turn. It's possible they weren't conscious of the message our group interpreted from that song choice. We'll never really know for sure. But tensions definitely escalated. The rest of the day is foggy for me because drinks were included in the boat package, and I had a lot of them, but I remember there was squabbling between girls from each group over control of the music after that Miley moment. Girls from the other group were flirting with the boat crew, which resulted in more of their lame-ass song choices. On the surface, the source of the conflict between our groups was petty, but what was causing tension ran so much deeper than power over a playlist. By the end of the boat trip, we were all seething. Even in a small boat in the Caribbean, white privilege followed and strangled us. That boat ride haunted me. I couldn't accept the reality that the distance between two groups of women trapped on a small boat together could feel so immense and untraversable. I think of this boat ride when I passed the Big Top and the Alley Cat on my walk to work in Midtown. These two clubs on Main Street, they share a wall and yet again seem worlds apart. Big Top has mostly white clientele. The Alley Cat almost exclusively Black. These instances where two racial groups exist within such close physical proximity, but but adhere to an invisible border created by centuries of lies and violence. No, it's painful reminders of the absurdity of America's original sin and its enduring and relentless grip on our psyche. We cannot continue to live this way, but we will only move forward if we step across that invisible border. Since this country was declared, Black and brown communities have marched, written, sung, and died to dissolve the physical and mental separation that is oppressing and killing us all. And yet, the abyss persists. But this is the time. This is the time and the movement where white people must relinquish their comfort and illusion so that we can all exist in a shared truth. Now, while I will probably never, ever, ever, ever listen to Miley Cyrus, I do fuck with her old man, Billy Ray. In 2019, Billy Ray Cyrus recorded a remix of openly gay rapper Lil Nas X's Old Town Road as a direct fuck you to the keepers of the invisible line after the original Old Town Road was removed from the country charts for no real reason aside from racism. Unlike his daughter, who had profited from appropriating Black culture while doing nothing to uplift or center the women she openly stole from, Billy Ray used his power to make space for a Black artist in a music genre that has failed to recognize the contribution of Black artists and Black history to country music. So, here's to the Lil Nas X and Billy Ray Cyrus collabs happening around the world. Now what are you willing? What are you willing to put out there? Now what are you willing to put on the line?
Thank
Fantastic
you so
read.
much to Shayna and Debrina. All right. Before we get on to our last story of tonight, we just want to once more remind you of the Venmo to Grown Up Storytime, which is at GUST Houston. And don't forget, if you want to write a story to maybe, I don't know, end up in next year's best of.
Maybe you could be one of the people winning a Gusty later. There's you right now.
Wow. Look
Whoa.
at ya. Go ahead and send that story. Go ahead and send that story to grownupstorytimehouston at gmail.com. Now, your last story of the night is Computer Smashing Pumpkin Spice Latte Extra Sweet, written by Mary McCall Pineda and read by Mara McGee.
Computer Smashing Pumpkin Spice Latte Extra Sweet. I love Star Trek. Like, really love Star Trek. Now, Star Trek was not cool when I was growing up, at least not to the people around me. I didn't have friends to connect with about how hopeful and how inspiring and how incredibly dynamic these stories are. For the longest time, I was ashamed of how much I liked it. So I hid my love for Trek and all things sci-fi for that matter. I would stay up late watching Voyager by myself and dream about a world where a person like Catherine Janeway would lead a crew in a badass spaceship around the galaxy. Oh, I wanted to live in that world. I wanted to know other people who saw the excitement and the beauty of that world. I secretly always wanted to go to the Star Trek conventions and dress up like my favorite characters and have friends to talk about what I thought would happen next or what the worlds were like beyond the shows. I wanted to be cool, to fit in, so I never talked about these things with my friends growing up. But as age will do to a person, I realized that nerding out about what you truly like is way better than keeping these things inside. I became unabashedly loud about my adoration for all things Star Trek. I started watching Trek every night and excitedly talking to anyone that would listen about how universal these stories are. I figured the louder I was, the more likely I would be to find friends that shared my excitement. I was on a mission to find Star Trek friends. My partner is a really good sport, and though he isn't as into Star Trek as I am, he is really into indulging my excitement. So, for one Halloween, he agreed to dress up as Star Trek characters with me. I had been watching Deep Space Nine for several months, so naturally the obvious choice for us was to be Jadzia, Dax, and Worf. I had been practicing creating prosthetics with latex, and this was the perfect opportunity to marry those two passions. I created a Klingon prosthetic for him, practiced painting on chill spots for me, and sewed us 2 DS9 uniforms to canon for when Jadzia and Worf were officially a couple. I spent a good 4 hours getting us ready for the Halloween show we were going to. My partner even let me shave his facial hair to match Worf's. I told him that even if one person connects with us over the costumes, I would consider all of this work a success. I spent days preparing my partner to act like Worf, to say things Worf would say. I needed him to be in character. I knew it was more likely that he would get interactions than I would, so I needed him to be perfect. We headed out to Walter's downtown for my favorite Halloween gathering, the Halloweening. We entered the venue, said hi to a few friends, and a couple of people came up to us to engage, but no one was getting it accurately, and honestly, I was getting a little annoyed. Like, someone thought he was a Vulcan. I mean, come on, man, a Vulcan? Give me a break. It's not like he was dressed up as a Romulan and they thought he was a Vulcan. At least I would understand maybe a casual fan making that mistake. Now, if you aren't a Star Trek friend, let me break it down for you real quick so that you know just how super silly this era was. It's like if I was holding a puppy and someone came up to me and said, "Oh, wow, I really like your bird." I was offended, to say the least. This was most definitely not the person I was looking for. The night was wearing on, and we got several Vulcan salutes, which, okay, it was nice seeing that out in the real world, and who doesn't want to hear people telling you to live long and prosper? But I was still holding out for that moment when we encountered someone that really got it. We made our way to the bar. I was about to have that moment. I had been going to these Halloweening events for years, and every year the show brought out the best in the local Houston music community. I had actually come to the show to catch the band that was wrapping up, so as we found a spot at the bar, Smashing Pumpkin Spice Latte. My friend Joe produced the event and always had an equally ridiculous and amazing mashup cover band to take the stage for one night only. I looked forward to it every year. I usually know the people he was playing with, but this time he was playing with someone I didn't recognize. When they got off the stage, the person came up to us as we were sitting at the bar. He was making a beeline for us. He approached us with such purpose. It was like he knew us, but since I definitely didn't know, and he must know my partner, Jose. Without a pause upon arrival, he stopped right in front of Jose and asked, "Are you drinking prune juice?" Holy shit! The moment has come! I was bursting! I was giddy, gleeful, and all the things to say. Only a true Trekkie fan would know that Worf always drinks prune juice at bars. We had prepared for this. Days and days of watching episodes of Worf. I tried to pour all of my knowledge of the world, the relationship, this character into Jose's mind. But then my partner just stood there, quietly, staring, frozen, not responding. The guy stared back, waiting, on the edge of his anticipation. Those few moments of silence hung in the air like an eternity for me. I looked at Jose, waiting for him to respond. Why, yes, of course, it's a warrior's drink. Or to simply raise his glass and shout, Kapla! But instead, he forgot all our preparations and said nothing. I could not bear it, and I spoke for him, which, reflecting now, is actually rather perfect, considering Worf's and Jadzia's relationship dynamic. Of course she would interject when Worf would turn silent. Jadzia is, after all, the outgoing one, and took no mind when Worf got antisocial or all weird, as he would often do. Anyways, let me get back to the story, because I could really go on about Jadzia and Worf all night long. I interjected and told him that my sweet partner was humoring me, and I am the Trekkie here. We exchanged conversation in a flurry, touching on Gwynin, 10 Forward, the continued relevance of Trek storylines, the brilliance of Captain Sisko. It was a genuinely nerdy exchange. I felt a deep satisfaction that only comes after connecting with a stranger in such a fun way. We friended each other on social media, and unsurprisingly, he turned out to be a very cool person that I still get to connect with over all things Star Trek. Once CBS released the newest series, Star Trek Discovery, we started a club with another committed Trekkie, and for over 3 years now, we have been discussing the Federation and the truly magnificent world that Gene Roddenberry gave us decades ago. Star Trek shows us what our future could be. Star Trek is hope. Star Trek brings people together.
All right. Keep it going for Mary and Mara.
Keep it going for hope.
Yeah, keep it going for hope. That's the show, everyone. Thank you all so much for watching. Once again, I'm Connor Clifton. This is Ned Gale. And together we are the host of FM Rager. We're also, our duo's name is Effin' Rager, and our show is called FM Rager.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. We host the show Monday nights at 8 p.m. on Twitch. It's free to watch. We also have a website that you can please check out. And I just want to do one little plug. If you love having stories read to you, maybe you like reading stories yourself sometimes too.
That sounds good.
I would like to share with all of you the very first edition of the Effin' Rager Book Club, where it's going to be January 29th, which is a Friday at 8 p.m. on our Twitch stream. Our guest is going to be Travis J. Reyes, and the three of us, and you, if you join in the chat or call in, will be discussing My Antifa Lover.
Hold it higher. Yeah, there you go.
A Riot of the Heart, written by Jessica Stranger. And I'm just going to read the back here. It says, a young congresswoman falls in love with a daring masked protester in Seattle, Washington. After encountering him at a nonviolent burning down of a federal building, she can't tell what is hotter, the fire or her feelings developing for him. From the person who wrote you, not my president, but my lover, comes my Antifa lover. Read it with us, please. It's 86 pages. It's very short, huge font. $8.99 on Amazon.
Free on Kindle. You can start a trial. It'll probably take you an hour to read it, maybe 2 hours.
Yeah, and I know 18 of y'all just saw that ad, so I expect to see you all there.
And that's going to be on next Friday at 8 p.m.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Once again, thank you so much to Blair and Emily and the GUST community for sticking with us this long. We cannot tell you how excited we are to see you in person, so you can tell us what a great job we did this past year.
And maybe tell us each of your favorite bits that we did, because we did so many, and they were all so funny.
We did a lot of bits for y'all. Stick around. Well, don't stick around. The show's almost over. But hey, next month, please come back and see the outspoken Bean. He's going to be producing GUST, and then hopefully we'll see you guys in March. All right. Bye.